I'm having a look at the quadratic formula today. Now, the quadratic formula is what we can use for quadratics if we want to solve them and we're not able to factorize them. So when we're solving quadratics, obviously factorizing is the quickest way to do it, but if you can't factorize, then you can use the quadratic formula. Mostly you will be given that in exam if you are using it, or it might be on the formula sheet. Most cases we do not expect you to learn that off by heart. So for our quadratic formula, our x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Now if you're used to using, when you're factorising the ABC method, you'll be used to identifying those parts of the equation. So here we have x squared plus 5x plus 3. So our a is 1, our b is 5, and our c is 3. If we were using the ACB method, we'd be saying what would multiply to give 3 but added to give 5, which we can't work out. So we're going to use our formula. So when we start our question, we write down that formula and then we put those parts in. So we're putting negative b, so our b is 5, so negative b will be negative 5. If our b was a negative number, obviously that would become positive. Then we've got plus or minus the square root of 5 squared, take away 4 times 1 times 3, because a is 1 and c is 3, and that's over 2 times 1, because our a is 1. We can then work that out. 5 squared is 25, 4 times 1 times 3 is 12, so we're going to do negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 13 divided by 2. So we can then split it into the two parts and say negative 5 plus the square root of 13 over 2, or negative 5 take away the square root of 13 over 2. So we can pop that into our calculator and that will give us negative 0.697 or negative 4.303. Now, when we use the quadratic formula, we've got 3 different scenarios that can happen. We can get 2 answers. We could get 1 answer, and that would be where we had inside our square root sign our 4ac was the same as our b squared, and we would get a 0 there, so then we would be ending up with the plus or minus 0. So that would give us only 1 solution. And then our other option is if we ended up with a smaller number for b squared than 4ac, we would have a negative inside here, which means we wouldn't be able to work out the square root and there would be no solution. So we have those 3 outcomes for that scenario, for the different options when we do a quadratic formula. If you're given a question where you're asked to find out to solve it using quadratic formula, you'll generally have been given one that will be able to be solved. Having a look at another example is we have 2x squared minus 2x take away 3 is equal to 0. So I'm going to write down my a, b and c first. My a is 2, my b is negative 2, and my c is negative 3. So then I'll write my rule, which is x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Just do my line a bit long there. So I'm going to pop in my negative b. Now my b is negative 2, so negative b is going to be positive 2. Plus or minus the square root of negative 2 squared. Now I'm putting brackets around that because often when students will put negative 2 squared into their calculator, they'll get negative 4, forgetting that the calculator is trying to use order operations and doing the squared first and then the negative. By putting the brackets around, you're telling the calculator you want to do negative 2 times by negative 2. Then we've got 4 times 2 times negative 3, and that's going to be over 2 times 2. So we get 2 plus or minus the square root of, now negative 2 squared is going to be 4, take away 4 times 2 is 8, times negative 3 is negative 24 over 4. So I'm going to grab my calculator. First I will simplify that. 2 plus or minus the square root of 28 over 4. So I'm going to do 2 plus the square root of 28 divided by 4, and then 2 minus the square root of 28 divided by 4. So working out those two answers. So I've got 2 plus the square root of 28, and then dividing that by 4. And your calculator may come up with the third form there, just pressing that arrow button to get the decimal, and we get 1.822. And then if I do the other option with 2 take away the square root of 28, and then dividing by 4, I get negative 0.822. And I can round that to 823 there. So then they are my 2 options. So each time you do one of these questions, you are most often going to get 2 answers, unless you have those 2 scenarios, either where your b squared is equal to what you have for 4ac and you get 0 inside your square root sign, that way you'll only get 1 answer, or if you get a negative inside your square root sign, which means you're not able to solve, so you don't get any answers there. Okay, hope that helps with your quadratic formula.